Did you know that in the 1970s, you could grab a gallon of petrol, a cinema ticket, or even a bottle of whiskey for under £10? Back then, prices we'd consider impossible today were just everyday normal. From fashion to food to entertainment, money stretched a whole lot further. From petrol to vinyl records to fish and chips, this is £10 in the 1970s. Back in the 1970s, walking into a shop and buying a full bottle of whiskey for under £10 was nothing out of the ordinary. Whiskey wasn't seen as a luxury drink reserved for special occasions like today. It was a common choice on the shelf, affordable enough for households and pubs alike. Brands that are now priced at £30, £40, or even higher could be picked up for just a fraction of that. The drink carried the same sense of tradition and prestige, but it didn't burn a hole in your wallet. This affordability also meant whiskey was often the centerpiece of home gatherings, making it a staple for socializing. Looking back, it's almost surreal to imagine paying just a few pounds for a bottle that today might be locked behind glass in a supermarket. Whiskey was both an everyday purchase and a reminder of just how far money stretched. The 1970s were a golden era for movie lovers, not just because of the classics on screen, but also because of how cheap the tickets were. For well under £1, you could spend an entire evening at the cinema watching blockbusters like Jaws or Star Wars on the big screen. There was a genuine thrill in lining up outside the theatre, grabbing your ticket, and stepping into a world of popcorn and dimmed lights. Today, that same experience can cost anywhere from £10 to £20, depending on the theatre, with extra charges for 3D or premium seats. Back then, cinema was a weekly treat for families and teenagers alike, rather than an occasional splurge. The low price made moviegoing a regular part of everyday life, and it's no wonder so many people look back at those times with nostalgia for both the films and the affordable fun. For women in the 1970s, nylon stockings were more than just an accessory. They were a fashion staple. The best part? A decent pair could be bought for under £1, making them accessible to nearly everyone. Stockings symbolised elegance and style, worn to offices, night outs or casual occasions, and the affordable price meant women could own multiple pairs without thinking twice. Compare that to today, where hosiery often comes with a much steeper price tag, especially if you're looking for durability or branded designs. In the 70s, stockings weren't just about fashion. They reflected the growing independence of women, stepping confidently into workplaces and social circles. Buying a pair was as routine as picking up bread or milk, and it showed how fashion didn't always come with a premium. A simple pound note was all it took to keep up with style trends of the decade. Few experiences captured the joy of community like a 1970s state fair. With just a couple of pounds in your pocket, you could buy admission, wander through lively stalls, and enjoy rides, games and music without worrying about breaking the bank. The fairs were family-friendly events that brought together local food, crafts and entertainment in one place. What made them special wasn't just the atmosphere, but how accessible they were. Virtually everyone could afford to attend. Fast forward to today, and ticket prices alone can easily climb well over £20, not to mention the added costs for rides and food. Back in the 70s, however, the fairground wasn't seen as an expensive outing, but as a regular community highlight. It was where memories were made, from children clutching candy floss to couples riding Ferris wheels. For under £10, you could enjoy it all, start to finish. Television was the heart of the home in the 1970s, and owning one came with a simple responsibility: paying for a license. Back then, the cost of a black and white TV license was just around £5, well under the £10 mark. This small fee gave families access to the BBC and a handful of channels, but it felt like a window into the wider world. The license system was already a staple of British life, but the affordability meant almost every household could join in. Compare that to today's colour TV licence, now well over £150 a year, and the difference is staggering. The black and white licence may sound outdated now, but in the 70s it was the norm, with many homes yet to switch to colour sets. It's a perfect example of how something essential for entertainment once cost as little as a night out. 4 loaves of bread in the 1970s didn't feel like a luxury purchase. They were an everyday staple that barely dented your wallet. For less than £1, a family could stock up on enough bread to last the week, something almost unthinkable with today's prices. Bread was central to meals, from simple sandwiches to toast at breakfast, and its low cost made it one of the most reliable items in the shopping basket. Back then, buying multiple loaves wasn't a big decision, it was routine. Today, with artisan brands and rising costs, grabbing 4 loaves feels like a noticeable spend. The contrast shows just how different the value of money was, where basic food stretched far and supported households without pressure. Bread in the 70s was more than a necessity, it was a clear example of how accessible daily life could be. Vinyl records in the 1970s were both affordable and iconic, shaping the culture of the decade. For just a couple of pounds, music lovers could pick up the latest albums from artists like David Bowie, Pink Floyd, or the Rolling Stones. Owning records wasn't seen as a costly hobby. It was part of everyday life for teenagers and adults alike. Flipping through the racks at the local shop, discovering new sounds and carrying home a fresh LP was a thrill that didn't demand deep pockets. Today, vinyl has made a comeback, but the prices reflect its collectible status. Many albums cost £20 or more, and rare editions can reach hundreds. Back then, though, it was simply the way to enjoy music, cheap enough to build a personal library. The affordability of records gave people the soundtrack of their youth, at a price nearly anyone could pay. School shoes in the 1970s were practical purchases that most families could afford without too much strain. A sturdy pair, meant to survive playground scrapes and rainy walks, often cost only a few pounds. Parents saw them as an essential buy at the start of each school year, and they didn't carry the hefty price tags we see today. Shoes were built to last, designed with durability in mind, and that made their affordability even more remarkable. Compare that with modern times where branded or quality school shoes can easily cost £40 or more, and the shift is obvious. For families in the 70s, a pair of school shoes wasn't a financial hurdle, but just another box ticked on the back-to-school checklist. They represent how even essential, durable goods stayed within reach, letting children walk into classrooms with confidence at a price that felt normal. Magazines were a small pleasure that almost everyone indulged in during the 1970s. For a few pence, you could grab the latest issue of a music magazine, Fashion Weekly, or even hobbyist reads like photography or gardening. They were cheap enough to buy regularly, giving readers a steady stream of entertainment, gossip, or inspiration. Newsagents had rows filled with glossy covers, and picking one up was as casual as buying a bar of chocolate. Today, with print declining and niche magazines priced at £5 or more, that simple habit feels expensive. Back then, magazines were part of the rhythm of everyday life, affordable treats that added colour to a week. They show how even small luxuries were easily within reach, proof of how much further a pound could stretch. Buying a magazine was effortless, not something to second-guess over cost. 3 McDonald's burgers in the 1970s could be ordered for less than a single burger costs today. The fast food giant was still expanding in the UK, but its pricing followed the same pattern as in the US: low, accessible, and designed for families. Grabbing a few burgers didn't feel like a splurge, it was pocket change dining that filled you up and felt fun. The bright wrappers and quick service made it a novelty for kids and teenagers, while parents loved that it didn't cut into the household budget. Contrast that with modern times, where fast food is no longer cheap food, but often comparable to a sit-down meal in price. Back then, 3 burgers for under £1 was a reality, and it captured the spirit of fast food as affordable convenience. It was the ultimate casual meal, simple and satisfying without costing a fortune. In the 1970s, the Russel Hobbs K2 kettle became one of the most iconic household appliances in Britain. It wasn't just about boiling water, it was a symbol of sleek design and modern efficiency. With its polished chrome finish and durable build, the K2 became the standard kettle in countless kitchens. What made it special was that it was priced affordably, often costing less than £10, meaning almost every family could own one. At a time when convenience was becoming a priority, this kettle made mornings faster and tea breaks easier. Today, vintage collectors pay a hefty sum for surviving models, while modern electric kettles range from £30 to over £100. Looking back, it's almost unbelievable that something so well designed, durable, and stylish could be picked up for such a modest price. The K2 shows how everyday items once offered true quality without straining a budget. In the 1970s, smoking wasn't just a habit. It was part of everyday life, seen in pubs, offices, and even on television. Buying 2 packets of cigarettes was easy on the wallet, costing under £10 and often just a fraction of that, depending on the brand. Cigarette packaging with its bold logos and colourful branding was a common sight in every corner shop, and smoking carried a sense of social coolness. Whether tucked into a suit pocket or displayed casually on a cafe table, cigarettes symbolised normalcy. Today, with stricter regulations, health warnings, and soaring prices, 2 packets can cost upwards of £25 to £30 in the UK. What was once an accessible indulgence has become a pricey habit that drains wallets quickly. The affordability of cigarettes in the 70s is one of the clearest examples of how everyday spending has shifted dramatically over time. Getting a haircut in the 1970s was less about expense and more about routine. For just a few pounds, you could walk into a barbershop or salon and walk out feeling like a new person. Men went for neat, sharp cuts, while women embraced everything from feathered layers to long flowing styles. The affordability meant people could visit regularly, keeping up with trends without worrying about cost. Barbershops were local hubs, filled with chatter and community, while salons were experimenting with the decade's bold new looks. Today, a haircut can set you back anywhere from £20 to £60 or more, depending on the place. Back then, it was so cheap that it felt like just another part of life's rhythm, like buying bread or milk. The 1970s haircut proves how much value is packed into everyday services for a fraction of today's price. The 1970s were a turning point in women's fashion, and the trouser suit with a spotted cravat became a bold symbol of change. This wasn't just clothing, it represented confidence, independence, and a break from old-fashioned norms. Inspired by the growing women's liberation movement, the look combined masculine tailoring with feminine flair, creating an outfit that balanced power and style. And the best part, it was affordable, often falling well under £10, meaning working women could embrace fashion without financial strain. The spotted cravat added personality, making the outfit stand out in offices, social gatherings, or even casual settings. Today, tailored suits can cost hundreds of pounds, making them a luxury purchase rather than an everyday option. In the 1970s, though, this stylish suit was accessible to all, turning fashion into a statement of both identity and progress without breaking the bank. Sherry held a special place in 1970s households, often tucked away in a cabinet, ready for guests or family dinners. It was seen as both elegant and approachable, making it the drink of choice for casual evenings or social gatherings. A decent bottle could be bought for under £10, which made it a regular item on shopping lists rather than a luxury. Families often poured a glass during Sunday roasts or offered it to visitors as a gesture of hospitality. Sherry's popularity was also tied to its versatility. It could be enjoyed straight, in cocktails, or used in cooking. Today, a good bottle of sherry can cost anywhere from £15 to £50, with premium brands even higher. The shift in price and perception highlights how this once affordable staple has become a niche indulgence. In the 1970s, though, sherry was simply part of everyday life. In the 1970s, a train ticket was one of the most affordable ways to travel across the UK. For under £10, passengers could enjoy long-distance journeys that today would cost several times more. Rail travel was a central part of everyday life, connecting people to work, holidays, and family visits without draining their wallets. Trains in that era were not just about efficiency, but also about the experience, plenty of legroom, the charm of station cafes, and the hum of a carriage filled with chatter. Today, even a short trip can cost well over £20, with longer routes climbing past £100. Back then, a single note could get you across cities or even halfway across the country. It shows just how dramatically transport prices have risen, turning what was once a routine, affordable option into a carefully budgeted expense for most travellers. Breakfast in the 1970s was both simple and affordable, with cereal boxes lined up on supermarket shelves for just pennies compared to today's prices. Under £10 could easily buy not one, but two full boxes of popular brands, often with free toys or colourful cutouts on the back for children. Cereal wasn't just food, it was part of morning family rituals, from rushing before school to lazy weekend breakfasts. The packaging and advertising made it fun, while the price made it accessible to every household. Today, with inflation and brand markups, a single box can cost upwards of £3 to £5, making two boxes a noticeable expense in the weekly shop. In the 70s, though, cereal felt almost endless, a cheerful staple that kept families fed without tightening budgets. It's a clear example of how an everyday item transformed from cheap necessity to pricey grocery cart filler. Few meals capture British culture like fish and chips, and in the 1970s it was not only delicious, but also cheap enough for anyone to enjoy. For less than £10, a family could eat their fill, wrapped in paper and dripping with salt and vinegar. Chippies were the heart of neighbourhoods, offering comfort food that fit into every budget. Stopping by after work or treating the kids on the weekend wasn't considered a luxury. It was just part of life. Today, the same order can easily cost £8 to £12 per person, making a simple treat far more expensive. Back then, it was the ultimate balance of flavour and affordability, ensuring no one missed out on a hot, satisfying meal. Fish and chips of the 70s remind us how local food once represented value, community, and tradition, all rolled into one affordable package. In the 1970s, filling up your car didn't feel like a financial burden. A gallon of petrol could be bought for well under £1, meaning £10 could fill most tanks with room to spare. Driving was accessible and affordable, encouraging road trips, weekend getaways, and daily commuting without worry. Petrol prices were low enough that cars symbolised freedom rather than constant expense. Compare that with today, where a gallon can cost over £6, and fueling up is one of the biggest costs for any driver. The contrast is staggering. What once bought weeks of driving now barely gets you a few litres. For families in the 70s, petrol wasn't just fuel, it was an enabler of lifestyle, connecting people to work, leisure, and opportunity at a price that seems almost unthinkable now. Affordable petrol made mobility an everyday luxury everyone could enjoy. In the 1970s, grabbing a tabloid newspaper was part of millions of people's daily routine, and it cost mere pennies. Under £10, you could buy a stack of them to last weeks, making it one of the cheapest sources of entertainment and information. Papers offered bold headlines, gossip, politics, sports updates, and crosswords, often sparking conversations at workplaces or pubs. They weren't just about news, they were about being part of a shared cultural moment. Today, the cost of a daily paper ranges from £1 to £3, while online subscriptions add another layer of expense. Back then, newsprint was affordable for everyone, slipping into pockets, handbags, and briefcases without a thought. The 1970s tabloid newspaper represents an era when staying informed was accessible and communal, a small purchase that connected society in ways that now feel almost nostalgic. And that's a wrap on our trip back to the 1970s. If you enjoyed the nostalgia, don't forget to like and subscribe for more blasts from the past. See you next time.